Hey guys, I'm Jeff Meland, sports performance coach at North Star Performance.
I'm Dr. Hetland, RH Health and Injury Specialist, chiropractor.
And what we're going to take you guys through today is how to get back pain out of your squat. Some better biomechanical and anatomical positions to be in when you are performing the squat. We're going to get a look at it live from the actual exercise, and then we're also going to look at it from kind of the view of the spine, and Dr. Ryan's going to get in on what the repercussions are and kind of what it's looking like from that view of things.
Super important to be firing the proper muscles, to be putting your body in the right place. Something Jeff talks a lot about is exercise isn't always intuitive.
Right.
You think it is. You know, in being an athlete, you have great body awareness.
Get some!
Even still, as Jeff's training me personally on my squat, I need his cues on this, and Tiger Woods still has a coach to teach him how to play some golf and do his positioning right.
Right. There's a little bit more minutia in the movement patterns that get forgotten, or there's a bunch of old hat cues that we'll go over that kind of put people in bad position without having any idea of it.
And just if you're having pain in a squat, you probably are in a wrong position. You might have an old injury that you need to warm up and be very cautious of. Some people are wearing belts just to kind of help protect themselves.
Right.
One thing that you want to do with discs in the spine is the discs are like sponges. You need to warm them up, and you need fluid to go in and out of the disc. It's called an imbibition. One thing I recommend you do on a stability ball, every gym's got one, grab a stability ball and start rocking your hip to the side, really opening up the spine so the hip's dropping down and the spine's opening up from the side. And what we're going to try to do is get the whole disc warmed up all the way around 360. So you start left and right, and you'll do this for a good minute or so, and then you can go front, and you're trying to extend that hip, open up that disc angle, and then back, you're trying to bend forward and really open up the disc itself. Okay, and then you can start, after you do a minute or two of that, you can start going counterclockwise and then clockwise. And this is a great warm-up before you jump into squats.
One of the biggest misconceptions that I field is people getting into an extension pattern. It's that arching of the low back and that looking up with the neck. So I'm extended through my neck and through my low back. And this is one of the number one cues that I would say it causes a huge problem with the squat patterns. And it causes tremendous pressure in my low back as I'm hyperextended, and with looking up, I also have a kink in my neck. And what we're trying to demonstrate is how to maintain a much more neutral spine in the bottom of a squat that's flat from your neck down to your butt, rather than that extension. Once we get into this eyes up, chest up position, we can see what kind of tremendous pressure is building in that low back and in even the back of the neck.
If you look at the disc here, the back part of the disc really gets wedged, and these facet joints on the back, these railroad tracks, they're just getting jammed in there, and that's not a good position.
Well, and it's under load.
Yeah.
That's a bad position just standing, let alone with 400 pounds on your back.
Right.
600 pounds if you're me. Now, one of the easiest ways that we like to put people in better position to make this alleviate some of that pressure on the low back is we try not to get people to think so hard about looking up and puffing their chest up. The whole goal of that cue was to be able to accomplish a neutral spine without collapsing downward. But what we're really concerned with is bracing through the midsection, and as my hips go back, my chest goes forward to maintain that neutral spine. And now I have a straight line from the back of my neck down to my tailbone.
Yep.
Okay? This is a much more healthy spine position through and through that whole movement. And notice, my eyes were down, my chest was down. But the idea is, what's my spine doing? As long as I'm not weak in that position and collapsing and getting curvature, I can have that neutral position from here to the back of my neck. Anatomically speaking, as I sit, my femur pushes into my pelvis, which rotates forward. okay? As my hips move back, I have to counter that weight by having some of my upper body move forward. Yeah. And now the length of that femur will determine how much forward lean I get. If I have longer femurs and I have to reach further and further back to get to depth, the more forward my upper body will be to maintain that spinal angle. And the shorter my femurs are, I might be able to maintain a more upright position with a flat back. But it really is person to person. So I unrack it, come back, right, find my squat position. All right, now, as I sit, that load is going to drift forward. My hips go back, load goes forward. It's right over the middle of my foot. Stand up, clench the glutes. So I'm sitting back, load goes forward, neutral spine, come up, extend the hips. So down here, I initiate the movement with the legs, finish through the hips. And that's what is allowing me to maintain that neutral spine. So as I'm sitting down and my weight goes forward and that barbell is straight out, that load stays over the middle of my foot. If I were to get into that extension pattern, now that bar is directly over my heel, which is only going to keep me off balance and put more pressure in that already hyperextended lower back. So things to remember. As I sit back, that load stays over the middle of the foot, and as I stand up, I fire my glutes to drive my hips back under the bar. All right, so under the barbell, which is one of the most common errors that we see where it's really exaggerated, that hyperextension, that eyes up, chest up, poor posture, that's where we see it most often. But a lot of people that are doing workouts at home or maybe aren't even doing a barbell loaded squat, how do we avoid those same pitfalls when we're in a front loaded position with, say, a dumbbell, right? All the properties are very, very similar. All the elements are very much the same. But now that I'm front loaded, I need to be careful that I don't let it pull me down thinking that I'm in a neutral spine position or where I don't turn it into some sort of RDL. As I sit, my hips go back, I still have a neutral spine in the bottom position. I'm not required to lean forward as much. I can keep a more vertical upper body position because that load is front loaded. But notice I'm still maintaining that good neutral spine. So one of the pitfalls I want to make sure we avoid is when we get even into a barbell front squat, but a goblet front-loaded squat, that we don't just reach forward because of what I was saying with the barbell. The goal is, how do I keep the load over the middle of my feet with a neutral spine?
A lot of people in this will put their spine in a really harmful position because now you have this freedom.
Instability.
So at home, this is a great exercise, but you want to really be cautious of not doing this sort of thing, with this.
And fighting the urge to fall forward by puffing up instead of sitting back, yeah. Should this movement hurt my back or should this movement cause a pinch? And it's like, never in anything that we do should anything hurt. If a squat is hurting your back, you're in bad position. I mean, it's that simple. Any exercise.
Or you have an injury.
Yeah, or you have an injury already. Any exercise done incorrectly is bad for you. But every exercise done appropriately is good for you. Everyone thinks because they've seen a squat, they know how to squat. There is a lot of intricacies in a movement like that, especially body to body. Ryan and I have very similar bodies. We might have different limb lengths. We might have different range of motion. And in that, our squats might look a little different. So it's important to make sure that you're doing the squat that's appropriate for your body.
Jeff, talk to me again about you're saying that athletes are the best
compensators.
Yeah,
so a lot of times athletes can move in a very inefficient ways, even in bad position, but can be really strong in spite of what they're doing, not because of what they're doing. And you see that very often because they're so in tune with their bodies, and even more their bodies are so in tune with how they're moving, that they can make adjustments on the fly that allow them to make up for injuries, down-regulated muscle groups, and bad body position and still be able to move a hell of a lot of weight.
Yeah, well, you're athletic. You've got the ability to move your body in a way unathletic people can't.
Exactly, and that's why it's still important to, even with an athletic base, like you're saying, or someone who's I've always trained, it's important to have someone look at what you're doing to make sure that not only are you moving efficiently, but safely. So we dragged you guys over to the whiteboard just to kind of summarize some of the stuff we went over, give you a little bit more of a visualization, and then just give you a little something to leave with in regards to how you're going to think about approaching your squat moving forward. I want to show you guys a little bit what I was talking about with keeping load over the middle of the foot and how different limb lengths put people in different upper body positions. Be a long femored person, okay? This is a foot, shin. This is the distance from knee to hip. If that's longer, it's going to force the upper body into a steeper angle to be able to keep those shoulders over the middle of the foot. But notice this dotted line I drew. It's showing that with weight on the shoulders, that weight is still distributed over the middle of the foot, okay? Yeah, so now here's the other guy. He has a much more vertical upper body position, but notice the difference between knee and hip is a lot shorter. And if you have shorter femur, you can sit back to that same depth, but you can maintain a more vertical upper body because you don't have to counter the movement of the hips as much. When you're visualizing it, it's all about keeping that barbell over the middle of your foot. And when you're in that depth, that 90-degree parallel right below position, your upper body needs to accommodate the length of your legs.
Guys, this is so valuable because you might be in the gym watching this person and go, oh, I need to be more vertical. He
Right.
looks like he knows what he's doing. That looks like a perfect position. But then this guy goes to try to do that.
All the extension stuff we talked about.
Injury, extensions. And so in order to have a good upper body position in a balanced squat, avoiding injury, putting your spine in a great neutral position, you got to get rid of these things. You got to get rid of this idea that you need to extend your lumbar spine. Your eyes being up puts your spine in a really abnormal position as well. And the chest up thing really kind of has to go in order for you to have the neutral spine you're looking for. And like Jeff said, with the shoulders and hips being in sync, like with these diagrams.
You guys abandon these cues of eyes up, chest up. If you pay attention to where that load is in relation to over the middle of your foot, and you think about keeping a neutral spine over everything else, you'll find yourself in a lot safer, better squat that puts a lot less stress on your back, gets rid of all the pain, and helps you move more weight. So if you guys want more videos like this, obviously make sure you're following us. Dr. Ryan and I are going to continue to push out content and help find that balance between respecting anatomy and biomechanics and being able to increase performance.